Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're from. My name is Tyler Wiggins. I'm going to be hosting this webinar today along with Gal Roeder from SolarEdge. We're going to get started here in just 1 minute. I want to make sure everyone has time to get in. If for some reason you're experiencing any audio issues, please write a comment in the questions section on the user interface for GoToWebinar, and we'll see if we can fix it before we get started. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. If you're just joining us here today, my name is Tyler Wiggins. I'm going to be hosting this webinar along with Gal Roeder from SolarEdge. We're going to go ahead and get started. Before we begin, there's 2 notes I want to make. The first one is that this webinar is being recorded, and it will be emailed out to you guys, to all the people who signed up. So if you do have to leave early for whatever reason, just know that this webinar will be recorded and it will be emailed to you, so you will have it available to review at a later time. I also want to say that with the GoToWebinar user interface, please feel free to ask any questions. We will be having a Q&A session during the last 20 minutes of this webinar to go over any questions that you have. So please just feel free anytime to put them in the question section of the GoToWebinar user interface, and we will answer them at the end. So we'll get started here. So as I said, my name is Tyler Wiggins. I am the product development manager here at Everest Solar Systems. I've been working here for about 4 years now. My primary focus is working on developing and designing the new products and systems that we have. I also focus on developing the base software that we will be going over today. Joining me today is Gal Roeder. He is the product manager of the SolarEdge design tool at SolarEdge. He's also been at SolarEdge for about 4 years now, and he primarily works on the development and marketing of the software for PV design, energy simulation, and ROI analysis, among many more things at SolarEdge. So to make sure we have enough time for questions, I'm going to get going here on our base design tool. So what you're seeing here is the main page of our website. It's at everest-solarsystems.com. If you want to get to base, click on the menu icon on the top left and then go to your project. Once you're on there, you will see a button for base online design tool. Let's go ahead and click on that. There will then be a button that says directly to base. I'm going to click there, and that will take you to the base online design tool. A couple quick things. If you would prefer to work in a different language other than English, we have plenty here, so feel free to use that. If you'd prefer to work in metric units over imperial, please feel free to change that. It'll work regardless of the unit. I'm going to work in imperial today. That's what is most common here in the US, so I'm going to stay with that. But for anyone else, please feel free to change that. If you have not used our base tool before, where it has my name here, there will be a login button. So you can click on that login button and create an account. So I'm already logged in, so I'm going to keep that there. To start a new project, you click on the new project button here on the left. Click there. It's going to bring up this icon. This comes up every time, regardless of whether you had a project open or not. It's basically just letting you know that if you have a project you've been working on, make sure you save it before starting a new one. So get questions about that sometimes. It brings up the first page on the project tab brings up the map. So in this case, base understands that we're in the US, so it's bringing that up. I can go ahead. This is powered by Google Maps, so you can type in any address here. So the address we'll be working on today is in Southern California. Go ahead and click on that. It's going to bring me into this house, which we'll be putting solar on today for this project. I'm going to go ahead and name this project. We'll call it webinar project, and I'll put the date. All right. For design method, we have two options right now, 705 and 710. For those of you in California or other states that are adopting 716, we're currently working on that right now. The goal is to have it fully developed and ready to go by January 1st of 2019. So something we're working on right now. We'll have updates for that as the year progresses. You have the option of putting the author name in, and then you can put customer information if you would like. In this case, we're just going to leave it blank since we're just kind of looking at a test project today. So once you have all of that information in, we'll go ahead and click on the roof tab in the top left. So now at this stage, we're going to be drawing the roof on this project. So to do that, you click on the plus button on the left. And just as a quick side note, if you're unsure of what the button does, you can hover over it and it will bring up a little label basically telling you what that button does. So if you ever get stuck, feel free to do that. So I'm gonna click on the plus button to have that roof come up. This is a gable roof, so I'm gonna select a gable roof. This is the rectangular option for this gable roof, so I'm gonna be clicking on that. And then for the roof type, I know this is composite shingle, so I'm gonna click on that, and I'm gonna click add. So now I'm gonna be drawing the roof. So for drawing the roofs, you want to start with drawing the eave up to the ridge. Now, you don't have to do that, and I will show you that there's some ways to get around that if you don't want to, but best practice is start at the eave, click again, draw up to the ridge. When it turns green, I can click again, and that completes drawing the roof. So nothing too complicated there, very similar to other tools that you may have worked with. At this point now I'm going to add some basically some critical information for the roof, and then there's some options that you can modify from there. But one thing is building height. I'm just going to go with 15 feet, and then the roof pitch, I will go with a 20-degree pitch for this, just some arbitrary values for the sake of this example, but you'll obviously want to add whatever it is for that roof that you're working on. You'll see that there's an arrow here pointing down. That arrow indicates the slope direction of the roof. So this is sloping in the correct direction. Let's say that I accidentally drew in the roof starting on the western edge and drew it over. It might have that arrow pointing in that direction, which this would be incorrect. It's basically indicating that the slope is heading in the left direction. You can simply fix that by clicking the roof pitch orientation button to change that around. So crazy there. Let's say you accidentally selected tile when you meant to select composite shingle. You can change that as well here in roof covering. And then the rafter spacing you can put in this box here. So this case, Southern California, our rafter spacing is 24-inch on center or 2 feet. So I'm going to put that in. This is the where you would put that. If we're working on maybe a metal roof and we needed to put the rafter spacing in, we can change that to whatever value is required. So from there, I'm going to move on to the design tab now that we have our roof drawn. And in the design tab is where we place the modules. So you have the option on views to work in. You can work in basically, this is the satellite view. You can also switch to a 2D view, and it works similar to maybe some other tools you've used that just have a 2D drawing function. So you have both on what you want to work with. I'll work in the 2D view just because it's easier to see. For the example today, we're going to be using an LG module. So we have a very large list of modules here. So I'm going to scroll down to LG. Here it is, LG Electronics. In this case, we are using a 320, my notes here, 320 N1K. neon to black, A5, which is this one. So this is the module we were working with today. You also have the option of doing a user-defined module if it's not on our list. And if you're working with a module that's not on our list, please feel free to send us an email and let us know, and we can get that added on there so you don't have to add it every time. But we try and keep this list as updated as possible with all of the modules that exist that can be bought. So at this point, it's very similar to drawing the roof. I will click on the plus button to add the new module field. Now you have the option, since this is a sloped roof, of shared rail or cross rail. I'm going to go with shared rail today. And then we have the option of portrait or landscape. I'm going to go with portrait. And then either drawing a module field, if this is a large roof, maybe you don't need to fill the entire roof with modules. You have the option of drawing a field. Or you can also do a complete roof. So I'll go over that here today, just a complete roof to keep it simple, make sure we have enough time. So once I have that, we'll click on Add. And it adds that module field in here. So this system does not take into account jurisdictional requirements for, let's say, fire offsets or any offset that the jurisdiction might require. Right now, it's defaulting to the minimum allowable offset based off of our engineering letters for this system. What the engineers have said is the minimum distance that the edge of the module must be from the edge of the roof, which is 10 inches or 0.84 feet. You have the option of changing this. Let's say it required a 3-foot offset, but as you can see, it's requiring a 3-foot offset on every side of the roof, which may not be needed for the jurisdiction that you're working on. So you do have the option to play with this number to get it to what works for the jurisdiction that you're working in. But let's say that you just wanted to have an offset maybe on this side. You could look at just simply deleting these modules to get that offset that you need. So you have some options on how you want to go about spacing these modules off of an edge. Or if you need to remove modules, you can do that. So again, that's this eraser button on the top for delete modules. Click it, then it's a single click to remove them. If you need to remove an entire row or an entire column, you hold the control button and click. That will remove the entire column. I can hold the control button and click again to bring it back. I can hold the shift button and click. That will remove the entire row. Hold the shift button and click, and it brings that row right back. So you have some options there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those modules here just for the sake of this example. Now, let's say that initially I wanted to do shared rail, but now maybe I'm having second thoughts and cross rail might be a better option for me. It's not difficult to change in the mounting system. I can just change that to cross rail and it will change the system for me to cross rail. You won't notice a difference here because it's basically just moving the rails underneath, which I'll show you in the results tab what that looks like, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that on shared rail. For module orientation, let's say I wanted to experiment and see if I could fit more modules in landscape. First, let's look at how many we have in portrait. If I scroll down to the bottom, I can see I have 20 modules here. If I change this to landscape, I now see it adds some modules. Does it give me any more? It does not. We're at 18, so that really wasn't any help. That's fine. I'll change that back to portrait. In some cases it may help, in some cases it won't. It really just depends on the geometry of the roof. Portscape, we've been getting questions about what this means. So there are some instances, like potentially in this roof, where I might be able to fit a row of landscape modules on top right here. So what you can do is look at doing a portscape install. So top row landscape, I'll click on that and let's see if we can fit in here. We couldn't in this case. So maybe what this is that we haven't drawn the roof dimensions in correctly. We can look at changing those. If we want, you can go back to the roof tab and change those and go to the actual site and measure the roof, and maybe it is possible to get a row of landscape modules in there. But it really just depends again on the geometry of the roof. So Wasn't any help there, but in some cases you are able to fit an extra row on top. So that's what that portscape button means. The rail versus not tucking the rail. I'll go over this once we get to the results tab. It'll make more sense. So I will come back to that in a moment. The last thing I want to go over is thermal gaps. In this particular case, this array is too small to need gaps placed for thermal expansion. Essentially what this is talking about is when the array gets so large in one direction, you will need to have a gap placed between the arrays to account for thermal expansion, or the expansion of the metal due to the heat from the sun. In this particular case, we won't need to do that, but if you want to place a thermal break, let's say in this direction for whatever reason, I would click on the area that I wanted the thermal break, this line right here, and then I would click on break present, and that would break that array. We won't be doing that for this example because it's not needed, but that's how you would do it for a larger project if you were working on one. I'm now going to move on to the loads tab now that we have our design in. So we'll click on that at the top for loads. This is now showing us the design methodology that we're using, which is ASC 710. It's giving us the location that we're at. And now we have some options for wind exposure, risk category, and wind speed. So I don't have enough time today to fully explain the wind exposure and risk category, but my short explanation is typically like a house in a suburban neighborhood. Wind exposure C is typically a structure that has at least one side. There are no structures for 1,000 feet, but there is some debate on exactly what wind exposure C is. So the most important thing is to verify with the jurisdiction you're working in on what the wind exposure of that particular project is. And then wind exposure D is typically an open waterway, something like a resort on the beach, or maybe a house that is kind of on a cliff near a lake or near the ocean. It's typically what's considered D. Again, verifying with the jurisdiction is the best decision to make for deciding on whether to go with B, C, or D. Well, this one I know it's a B, so I'm clicking there. Risk category, again, is something that it's best to verify with the jurisdiction, but my quick explanation is, one is low hazard, typically like a barn or a building that's not being occupied. Two is a typical commercial building or a house that is being occupied. Three is typically a school. Four is typically a hospital or a government building. In this case, I know it's a house, so I'm going to go with 2. And wind speed, I know in this case is 110 miles an hour per ASCE 710. If you're unsure of what the wind speed is, you can click on this link here, ATC wind speed by location. I can take that address, copy and paste it into here, and it will give me the wind speed. Again, this is for the United States and territories of the United States. If you're working out of Mexico or Latin America, please feel free to contact our office that is in Guadalajara, and they will give you an applicable wind speed for the area that you're working in. A question that I know we're likely going to get is, are we going to have this tool made to calculate loads for Latin America, places like Mexico? And the answer is yes, that's something we're working on right now. Fortunately, do not have a date of when that's going to be implemented, but that is something that we're working on. If there are snow loads, you can add that information here. In this case, I'm in Southern California. I know there's not going to be any snow loading in this area, so I'm going to leave that blank. Moving on to the results tab. If I come in here, you'll see that this is a shared rail system, and now I'll quickly describe what I meant by tucked rails. Let's say that I didn't want to have this rail showing in the back or in the front. I have the option of tucking it underneath the array. So if I come back to the design tab, I have my tucked rail option. I can say tucked both, and that will tuck both of those rails. So if I come back to results now, I see both of those rails are tucked, which is great. If I want to see where the attachments are relative to the other ones in the rafters, if I go to the top right, there'll be a button for show hide components. I can click on that, and then I can click on roof structure, and that will show the rafters underneath the roof where those attachments are relative to those rafter points. You can also see where the rail connectors are. If you click on the rail, that will give you some information on the rail as well. So you have those options. You have options as well in this results tab to remove wire management clips if you don't want them, remove optimizer or microinverter mounts if you want them or not, and sleeves and other basically accessories, things that may not be needed for your particular project. So now if I come into the summary tab, I'll have my bill of material here. I have, this is the first roof. You may have more than one roof on a project if it's, say, it's an apartment complex or a commercial building. So you would have those roofs. You could then break up those roofs into each of their bill of material. Let's say that you wanted to remove or add additional items. If you click on Edit BOM, I can add extra quantities if I would like at this point. Sometimes it's good to bring extra things to the roof as things might change when you get out there. If you're unsure of what the item is, you can hover over the magnifying glass icon and it brings up a picture so you can get an idea of what that product is. And I think that's everything I wanted to cover for the bill of materials. Sorry, folks, just want to make sure I leave enough time for Gal here. I'm just going to cover the report very quickly. If you click on Generate Report, it's going to bring up a PDF of the project that we created. So I'll click and open that. And this will give you information on the project. It will give you information on the rail lengths. It will give you information on the array. And it also has the bill of material down at the bottom as well. So again, sorry folks, I don't have enough time to go over the entire report. I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about the SolarEdge export, which is the next thing that we're covering here with Everest Plus. So if I click on inverter design, and then I click on SolarEdge, it's going to export this project to the SolarEdge design tool. So it'll bring up an option for you to log into your SolarEdge account. So I'll click login now. I've logged into this many times, so it's going to just say successful login. That's in. And then give it a second here and it will, oh, maybe I should not have exited that. Let me give it one, there it is, okay. And it brings the project into the SolarEdge design tool. So if we click on generate here, it'll begin the project. So I'm going to pass this over to Gal at this point in time and let him take over in explaining how this tool works and how we can use the export feature from base to continue to design the project in the SolarEdge tool.
Hi, so you can hear me, right, Tyler?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, so hi everyone. Hi everyone, and thanks Tyler, both for the introduction and for having me on your webinar. I'm really excited to be here and show and discuss about this cool integration that we have. Let me just make sure my screen is, that I share my screen with you. Maybe you need to do this, Tyler?
I'm trying to pass it to you right now. Dakota, if you're on, can you?
No problem.
No, yeah, Dakota, if you're on, can you please give him the controls as well? See if it's working on your side. Gal, are you able to share the screen from your side? Maybe it just it already has given you the control.
Just a second. Let me try. I'm also trying. Just a second. Yeah, I think it should work now.
Yes, we can see your screen. Okay.
Great. Okay, cool. So as Tyler mentioned in his introduction, we at SolarEdge have our own design tool called the SolarEdge Designer, where you can actually also start from an address, location of the system, draw the roof, place the solar panels, and then do the electrical design with the SolarEdge inverters and power optimizers. However, we don't have detailed mounting, all the detailed mounting. So if you are using the Everest products, or you're using the base tool, this is actually a very cool way to actually draw the roof and create the PV layout at the base tool. And then by using this export function, you're immediately you don't need to recreate this project on our designer, on our design tool. And you can see I'm already in the electrical design of the project that Tyler created. After I already have all of the project information filled out, including even the selection of the most common electricity grid voltage. This is needed for the electrical design. Also including the site model, where it's also in 2D. I can also toggle on. Oh, not sure, just let me refresh for a second. I should see the satellite image as well. We'll try that in a second. And also in 3D, you can see the 3D representation of this roof face. Also, the PV module placement that was done in the base tool. This is just the things that happen on a demo, but of course I should, we also export the satellite image as well. So basically what's needed to, what I need to do to complete, and I'm able to continue the journey, the design process with the SolarEdge designer, is do the electrical design. So the designer gives us a recommendation for which optimizer, which inverter model and quantity and compatible power optimizer we'll be using based on the location and availability of the SolarEdge products, the electricity voltage, the DC that we've placed on the roof, and also the DC-AC oversizing ratio. So I'm also able to take this slider a bit up, and and then I can actually get a smaller inverter and a higher oversizing ratio. Then I can use the auto stringing feature that actually will do the stringing and offers 2 strings of 10 P320 power optimizers. Or I can also decide to just click on the generate button and do the stringing on my own while I'm getting the feedback about the string validity. You can see the string currently is too short, it's invalid. You can see in the system gauges here the valid range, the minimum and maximum number of modules, and the maximum string power. So once I will reach a valid state, it will turn green. Then I'll create another one and complete my electrical design. And then I'm just able to go to the summary report and get the project summary, including our highly accurate energy production simulation, the monthly breakdown, including any clipped energy. You can see I have less than 1% clipped energy on an annual basis, so I think it's negligible. Also, we have the system loss diagram, including any shading. We're also doing shading analysis, so in case there would be any obstacles, we will also do the shading analysis and show you irradiance loss and electrical loss. Of course, the advanced settings in case you want to change any of those or add any additional loss factors, and the bill of materials for the SolarEdge equipment. Additionally, another nice benefit you get from using the SolarEdge designer is that once you sell the system and install it, you would probably want to monitor it, use the SolarEdge monitoring platform for operation and maintenance. So using from the designer, you can actually, by this clicking the export to monitoring, it's possible to just recreate the same project and PV layout on the monitoring platform. So it's actually right away available for mapping and commissioning. So maybe I ran too fast about this, but this is actually how easy it is to start a project from the base tool and complete it with SolarEdge design tool, having the mounting equipment from Everest and the electrical equipment from SolarEdge. Tyler, would you like to maybe take it from here while I try to figure out why we don't see the satellite image? Maybe you can just try to export again and let's see.
Yeah, no problem, Gal. Let me see from my side. I'll export it.
Refresh.
I'm clicking on, yeah, clicking on export now. Needs just a moment, sorry. Okay, there it goes.
Okay, so I'll just again quickly refresh. Okay, so you see the same. Okay.
Yeah, it's telling me that a project with that. It's telling me a project with that exists already by error there. So yeah, not sure. Sorry, folks. I'm a bit of technical difficulty on my side here. But should we take some questions at this time,
Okay.
Gal? I think that's probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it will be best, of course.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I have a question here. Again, guys, if I guess something I should mention, Manuel. He speaks both English and Spanish. If you would prefer to ask the question in Spanish, that is absolutely fine. We can answer in both English and Spanish. So whatever is easiest for you, please feel free to ask those questions in the question box located in the user interface of the GoToWebinar. So I have a question here that's talking about the tucked rails. So Gal, if you don't mind, I'm going to take the screen back here, and I'll show in base. Yeah, that is. So I think you have to click, if you click on stop sharing, and then I can grab it back. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Give me one moment here. Sorry, folks. Doesn't look like it's oh wait, here it is. So there's just a little bit of delay there. So make sure it's sharing the right screen, which it is here. Okay. So let me bring up the question about the tucked rails here. So if we look in the results tab, I have both of these rails tucked underneath the array. So just to kind of go over that again, if I just had a standard shared rail system here without the rails tucked, those rails would basically exist in between the rows of modules. So we would see at the top, the middle here, and the bottom. Basically, that rail is existing in between these rows of modules. So for aesthetic reasons, you really have two options here for shared rail. You can use a skirt on the front to hide that rail if you'd like to do that. The second option is, and again, if your module allows for it, is tuck that rail up where it's now going to be mounted on the quarter point on the long side of the module, and also be mounted on the short side of the module on the quarter points of this short side. So an important thing to note if you're going to be tucking the rail is to ensure that the module manufacturer allows for that mounting option in their assembly guide. So that's something important to check on. So if I did want to tuck those rails, I can now go to the design tab and I can click on tuck both, or tuck the front or tuck the back, whatever I wanted to do. I'll click on tuck both. And now if I go into results, I will see that the rail has been tucked under both of under the front and the back of this module array. Perfect. Okay, I hope that answers the question. I have another question here. Does the Everest tool provide hardware recommendations for SolarEdge optimizers? It's a great question. Yes, it does. So one thing I'm planning on doing is rewording this option here in the results tab where it says use microinverters. What this really should say is use microinverters or optimizers. So Everest does provide an optimizer and microinverter mounting kit, which we should have in the bill of materials. Let's see where that is, right here. CR Micro Optimizer Accessories Mounting Bracket. And it's essentially a kit that uses our MK3 slot nut and a bolt, and you can mount the SolarEdge optimizer directly to the rail, again, per SolarEdge installation requirements as well, so make sure that you're referencing that too. But you can mount that optimizer directly to the rail. Second question here, another question. Does the SolarEdge tool let us select a StoreEdge inverter? Might be a good question for you,
Yes.
Gal. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely does. So we, I can actually maybe show it if you hand over, or I'll ask again for the presenter rights.
Yes, I should have them, or the ability to take it.
Right. Yeah. By the way, in the meantime, I was able just to extend, just to create a nice looking roof and resolve the issue with the satellite map. So now I think everything works great. So
Excellent.
Of course it's possible to select the inverter that I generated before. Click on the edit button here. Then when I open this list, you can see the inverters with this battery indication. So those are the StoreEdge inverters. Once I select them, I can just select the battery, click on done, and just replace it. Another option is actually to start my design. Let's say I have no inverter, and then in this electrical design side pane, I just click on the add storage, select the storage capacity, and then I'll get the recommendation, including the number of batteries that I will need. Then I'll click generate. I can do actually the auto string again from here, and I'm ready to go. I have a storage inverter.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Gal. If there's a secondary question, again, please feel free to add that to the questions box and we can cover that in more detail as needed. So the next question I have here is, can I send both of these project summaries to my authorized SolarEdge and Everest distributor for pricing and availability? Yes, I mean, I don't see a reason why you couldn't. So with the Everest design tools, we went over, sorry, the base design tool from Everest, there is a generate report option. So you could take that, it has your bill of material on it. So you could take that to your distributor or whoever you're buying from to get a quotation on that material. Gal, I don't know if there's anything you want to comment further on that.
Yeah. No, I have the same reply. Of course you can.
Yep, okay. Perfect.
You might need your distributor to understand the right part numbers from our bill of material, because in our bill of materials you will see the inverter models and the power optimizer models, but you will need different part number if if the layout is in portrait, for example, or in landscape. So, but your distributor should know, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Perfect. Okay. Have another question here. This is a question for the SolarEdge designer. Do I need to manually draw strings every time?
So no, you don't. You can just use our auto string feature. So right now I don't have any unwired modules, but if I'll just clear my strings, we have a tool here called auto string. So either I can do it during the recommendation when I initially add the inverters to the design, or I can decide to do them later. And there we actually do the auto stringing and apply all of the design rules, the flexible design rules of SolarEdge to create the an optimal string design. It's also possible using an advanced setting on the auto string option for either only horizontal snake pattern while you string, a vertical one, or a mixed one in order to minimize the string wiring. So I just click on the auto string, click on generate, and I have the string design. Of course, for either for bigger systems, this tool is very useful.
Very cool. Very cool. It looks like we have another question here. How long has this been available, Everest Plus? It's just we just started, I believe, in September of this year in the United States. I think K2 Plus was around a little bit before then, but we showcased it for the first time at SPI this year. So whatever date SPI was, late September. Right. I have another question here. If you make a change in the SolarEdge design tool to the module, is it related in base? So the answer to that question is no. So for best practices, we recommend making changes to the actual in the base online design tool, and then exporting that project back into the SolarEdge design tool. So we believe that will be the best practice. If you need to modify the location of those modules to make sure it's not going to have an effect on your bill of materials on the Everest side. So perfect. We'll give you guys 30 more seconds. If there's any more questions, please feel free to add them here. Looks like that was the last of our questions. So, Gal, I'm going to go ahead and take the screen back. And I'll bring up our closing slide here. Oh, sorry. Looks like there's another question here. I'll go ahead and show my screen. I may end up passing it back to you, Gal.
No problem.
Yeah, what about one-line drawings? It's probably talking about the
the single line diagram.
Yeah. Yes.
This question is for me, and currently we don't have this report, but we will add it in the future. So it's on our roadmap, definitely, because we would like eventually to provide you with all the different reports you will need, like also technical proposal and the also technical documents. So at the moment we have the project summary. We also have an additional report we call a string design report, which is actually the string layout that you can print, give to your installation crew, how to connect the optimizers. But it's not a single line diagram, and we will have it in the future.
Perfect. Thank you, Gal. Looks like we have another question here, a couple more actually now. Does Everest base tool have multiple roof types? If so, how many? A great question. So I'm going to preface that question with yes, it does. And depending on the roof type is going to change the availability of that particular system. So if we're looking at sloped roofs, you can have a tile roof, composite shingle, trapezoidal metal, seam, or like a membrane or a gravel roof, which you rarely see with those sloped roofs, but they do come up. And then we also have a flat roof option for our commercial flat roof system, which is D-dome R squared. So you can do flat roof as well. And then within the roof types, you have the option of doing monopitch, gable, or a hipped roof, which we did not cover a hipped roof today, but we have another webinar that we have recorded on our YouTube channel. If you see a hipped roof installation, what that would look like, please feel free to head over to the YouTube channel and you can find that hipped roof installation there. Good question. I have another question here talking about the rail connector. Probably about the splice locations and where in relation to the attachment. So yeah, one thing to keep in mind with this system or with Everest systems is that the rail connectors are considered structural depending on the amount of wind and snow load that is applied to the system, which you can find information on that on our web page in the download section. So this particular rail connector, it is, hopefully I'm using this word correctly, agnostic of the location of the roof attachment. Basically, it does not require to have an attachment placed a certain distance away from this rail connector. So that is dependent though on the rail type. So with 48X and 48XL, those do have structural rail connectors. Our Crossrail 80 rail, our heavier rail, does not have a structural rail connector, which means that the distance from the rail connector to the attachment must be no greater than 1/3 of the maximum allowable span at those specific wind and snow load conditions. So hopefully I'm explaining that well. It's a little bit complicated, but something to keep in mind. So I think that hopefully that answers that question. The second follow-up, let me know. I'm going to bring up my email in a second. You always feel free to email me or give me a call. I can explain that a little bit better. So it looks like that's all of our questions today. I'll stay on for another minute, and if there's one more, we'll open it up, but I'll just kind of bring up our final slide here. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for everyone who attended the webinar today, and also wanted to say thank you to you, Gal, for helping us out today and going over the SolarEdge tool and showing the benefits of using the Everest-based system and exporting it to the SolarEdge designer. So appreciate your help with all of that today.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Of course, I was really happy to be here. Sorry for the technical difficulties. You can believe us that yesterday, of course, it didn't happen. So it's just a thing
exactly
in the demo, but yeah, everything works. Yeah. So
absolutely. If you need to reach us, you can find our contact information here. Also on the Everest side, we have a team of people in project services who are happy to help you with any base project that you have. One quick thing actually I think is worth showing. If you do have a question about a project, you can click on this download a project file button, and you can email a representative at Everest with your project file, and they can open it up and go over the project with you over the phone. So you do have that option as well. And any project you create on here will be saved as long as you click the project save button, and you can access it at any time, any later time as well. So you do have some options. If you need help, you can email us the project. We can help walk you through it. There's also a help feature here as well. And Gal, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to note on that for the SolarEdge design tool that might be worth noting as far as help features go.
So I don't know if you noticed or not, but also on our the right hand side we have our help menu. So it has in the designer itself, so it has some context information and help. We also have some tutorials on our YouTube channel and more information on our website. So in case you already have SolarEdge credentials using the monitoring platform, so you're already good to go. In case not, just a free sign-up process, and you can use our design tool or start using it. Of from the Everest and Everest Plus, and then get to us and continue your system design.
Perfect. Looks like we have maybe the final question here. Can I also share those project files with my team members? Absolutely. So any project file that you download can be opened up by another person who has a base account. So if, let's say you're working on a team of maybe 5 and you each have a base account and someone needs to help you with a project, you can download that project file, email it to them, they can open it up, make changes, save it as a new name, and send it back to you. So you do have that option as well to pass those files around to your team members as needed. So, okay. Looks like that was our final question. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, for those who may have arrived a little late, this webinar was recorded. It will be emailed out to you guys, I believe, in the next 2 days, and we'll likely have this up on our YouTube page as well, but more information to that will follow in a follow-up email within the next 2 days. So thank you very much.
Thanks, and have a great day.
Absolutely. Have a great day, guys. Thank you. Goodbye.